What infamous movie plot hole has an explanation that you're tired of explaining? The first rule of Fight Club, and their growing number of members, is because it is meant to teach the members to break rules. One of Charles Foster Kane's servants was outside his bedroom when Kane said, "Rosebud." The door was wide open. The dialogue later confirms that a butler heard Kane's dying words and reported it to the paper. How does Sarah Connor know which button to press to crush the Terminator in Terminator 1984? Because she accidentally presses it a few minutes earlier and it set the crusher off. It what lead the Terminator to find them. Is there some kind of Mandela effect going on with the Titanic movie? Why doesn't Rose let Jack get on? They can both fit. Quote, Jack does try to get on. It starts to sink with both of their weight on it. The flaw in the Death Star's construction. We didn't need Rogue One to explain it was a deliberate sabotage. So an exhaust port has a flaw. It is not unreasonable to believe that the flaw was necessitated for efficiency. Knowing that the flaw was inevitable, the trench leading up to the port was protected with gun towers. Tarkin, along with other officers, fully believed that the Death Star was superior in its construction, that small fighters would pose no threat to them. During the Rebel assault, an officer pointed out to Tarkin that the Rebel attack is exploiting this weakness and offers to prepare a transport for him. To which Tarkin responds, "Evacuate? In our moment of triumph? I think you overestimate their chances." To them, the weakness is negligible, that there is no chance a Rebel fighter would be able to drop torpedoes into the port. And they were right. The first fighter to make an attempt failed. Luke was only able to succeed because he used the Force instead of the computer. Something no one anticipated, because they all believed that the Jedi were extinct. Everyone always asks why there was a desert in Washington, D.C. in Transformers 2. It has been clearly explained in a ton of discussions of that movie that it was just a really bad movie. How did you come out of poverty, being broke? I was homeless, bouncing from shelter to shelter, hustling, running weed and pills for people to scrape together a session at the end of the day. One day my cousin took me with him to a place called Labor Ready. It's just a place where construction companies etc. pick up a day laborer. And at the end of the day you go back to the office and they cut you a check for the day's work. Well, when I got to that job site, the other punks I was working with from the agency were lazy and slow and complaining all day. Barely doing anything. It pissed me off. We were hired to work. So I worked my absolute guts out. We were digging mud out of the basement of an abandoned farmhouse that was being restored. The boss came during the day and saw me carrying 2 steel 5-gallon pails filled to the top with mud, up the stairs and out the back door constantly, while the other 2 were barely filling 1 2-gallon drywall mud pail. He took me aside and said, "You're not going back to the agency tomorrow. You're hired." From there I continued to work my guts out for him and eventually was promoted from laborer to a carpenter's apprentice. I learned a few trades there since they were a general contractor. From there I moved on to other companies and continued learning new trades. Today I'm a jack of all trades, making good pay. I do everything: windows and doors, flooring, brick and concrete repair, drywall, mud and tape, tile, siding and aluminum. You name it. I've got my own brand new van, fully kitted out with all the best tools I could possibly need to do any job. And my work is appreciated because I am meticulous and hardworking. And that's how I went from pinching out of weed bags and sleeping at a mission to owning a house and vehicles with a good job. Finished grad school, got a decent paying job, but continued to largely live as if I was broke. Live like I am still paycheck to paycheck. Married my way out of it. I had no idea her family were doing well because they live so frugally. But when I moved in with them to save money after marrying her, as they put it, I was put in charge of managing everyone's bills and credit cards. When I saw my father and mother-in-law's bank accounts, I at first thought it was a mistake. But when I raised it with my wife, she was like, no, that sounds normal. I nearly fainted. I know for bloody sure that their grandkids are going to want for nothing. Sacrificed comfort and focused on getting the bare minimum of what I need and how to get more money. I ate ramen and bread, slept outside, and took a shower when I could. I got a job at Walmart, then Ross, the clothing store, found a cheap motel to stay at with the girlfriend, and we scrimped and saved. But $33 a night on a $50 a day salary eats at you, and it was impossible to save. Like it would have been years before I could have afforded just a car to make sure I got to work on time. So I moved into my father's place and could save up for a car. They paid for my TESOL, and I used a lifetime of miles from flying between my mother and father to get a ticket to Poland. Sold the car and found myself eating potatoes in Polska till I got a job teaching English. Then the gold PLN was steady. Moral of this story is that poverty is a scary fucking thing, and it's really hard to get out of it. Without friends and family, there's no easy way out, and the longer you're there, the deeper the holes get, especially if you start borrowing money. I still like to travel on nothing sometimes though. Hitchhike, couchsurf, and eat nothing but bread for months. Being at the right place, at the right time, talking to the right people. You can be the most talented person in the world, but if you don't know how to play the social game and have a lot of luck, it sadly isn't going to happen. What is the fastest way you've seen someone get fired? First day at work. Hired by a temp agency. Me and one other guy. We put stuff in boxes and tape them shut. Stack boxes on a pallet. He can't keep up. Can barely use a tape gun and decides it's time for break. Goes to the lunchroom and takes a lunch. It was the boss's lunch. He stole the guy's meal his wife prepared for him. Boss man came over 15 minutes later and wants to know who ate his barbecue. Sticky fingers and barbecue on his shirt. He denies it. I just look at him and the boss and said, well, I hope it was good, man. Worked at an ISP back in the 90s and had a guy working late shift. Found out quickly he wasn't answering the phone at all, but just playing video games. He was warned. Next day he walks in to work with a Voodoo 2 graphics card to install in his work computer to improve the game playing. Fired before he sat down. I saw a coworker once make a big boobs gesture as our boss's wife walked past, with our boss walking right behind her. He was packing his shit within 5 minutes. First day on the job, gave another coworker a wet willy. Shit you not. A colleague let a middle school kid drive the bus. Bye-bye. The guy responsible for opening the shop on Saturday morning went out and got blitzed on Friday night. We showed up to work to find his car in the lot, but the doors locked. He didn't answer his phone. Had to call the owner in to get us inside. Guy was fast asleep under his desk. He was gone before you could say hangover. What's the most disgusting thing you have seen in a restaurant? In my pest control days, I watched a cook start up a flat top with mouse dropping all over it. He cooked chicken in the shit and served it up to an unsuspecting customer. I called the Department of Health on them. It was appalling. A napkin run across a floor. It was really a rat that somehow had a napkin draped over it, but it was surreal and super funny to watch. We'd joke about eating at the place that held napkin races any time no one could come up with a place to eat, then usually someone would be like, "No. Let's just hit up blank." I was working as a server at a steakhouse. Think something like about as nice as an Outback. Not that nice. But the servers are wearing ties. Big party comes in. Maybe 8 to 12 people. They sat down and were taking drink orders. One lady asked for 2 to-go boxes full of ice. Strange request. But okay. We bring them drinks and her 2 to-go boxes full of ice. Come back to the table a few minutes later and the boxes were nowhere to be seen. Until my coworker pointed them out. She had taken her shoes and socks off and had her bare feet in the boxes of ice. At the table, in the middle of a full dining room, a woman changing her baby's diaper on one of the tables. Before you throw hate at me, there were changing tables in both bathrooms. Condensation above a buffet turning brown and dripping back down on the food. Actual human shit roll out of someone's pants leg. They didn't seem to notice or mind. Subscribe, my brothers.